Hello everyone, and welcome to the Deep Blue Renegade podcast. My name is Molly, also known as the Deep Blue Renegade, and I'd like to welcome you guys to episode 433. Today is Sunday, January 22, 2023, and I'm glad you could join me today. It's been a long time since my last episode. The reason is because I was in Asia for the last 2 weeks, and I left early Saturday morning, so there was no way to record. But no worries, there's quite a lot of knitting content to share. Would it be not like crazy, but would it be, but some for sure. And would it be, and then yesterday I was pretty strung out. Would it be, I have had a good night's rest. I'm feeling much more human today. So I had to wake up at 3 a.m. Vietnamese time on Saturday the 21st to leave, and then I ended up getting back to San Francisco at like 9:15 on Saturday the 21st, and be like, how does that work? Because international dateline, friends. But I only ended up sleeping like 3 hours on the airplane, and so 3 a.m. Vietnam time translated to noon Pacific. So at noon I had gone 24 hours with 3 hours of sleep, and that was short sleep anyways because I didn't get to bed. Would it be, I didn't get to bed early the night before I left for the airport. So as a result, would it be, I was fine when I got back, and then in the afternoon we tried to run some errands, and I was increasingly not fine. I ended up going to bed at 9 p.m. last night, and I slept the whole way through like the dead, so it turned out, but yeah. Would it be? And then it was the case where like situation where like would it be, it was sort of the case where, because of like all the jet lag and sort of like that big shift in time zone, like what would it be? There's a limit to productivity. There were times I knew I was tired because I was like sitting, holding my knitting, and doing nothing. But I did manage to finish something while I was out, and basically what this boils down to was so I think when I showed you this at last, it was totally different. So it was the case where I had the blue as the flame color, and then I had the red as the nut flame. I decided to swap the colors, and that is mostly, or it'd be the case where I think part of it just had to do with like sort of like how the yarn was working up. So it's the case where I got about like 2 flames per color repeat on the DK fully spun, and the color is actually ends up being fairly uniform despite the marled yarn on the fingering weight that I was holding doubled for the fully spun yarn. Maybe I am fully spun. I'm going to actually clean that up. Yeah. So I decided that I think that it would end up looking a little bit better this way. And you can see what we have here is actually where my color transition is. So the brighter pink is where I started, and then the darker is where I finished. And so it actually fades pretty well together, all things concerned. So this is the Azula hat. It is a woolly worm head design. I ended up buying the full Elemental ebook, so I'll probably be knitting a couple more of these. I was knitting it with the colors swapped over Christmas. but there reached a point where, would it be, there were so many errors because I was knitting the hat while watching like movies and TV shows, and I wasn't being particularly careful about counting, and that's what really made this pattern hang together, was you're doing something low-key enough where you can count your way through it. So I worked on this an awful lot on rides from like the hotel to the various factories that I was visiting, and that was right. That was the correct situation with which to be knitting this hat. Like, not that it takes like a ton of concentration, but it took a while for me to figure out, when I started knitting it over Christmas time, sort of the logic of the pattern and how everything hangs together. So basically I had a practice run of the hat where I had the color swapped, and then I started over again. And I'm much happier with the result this way. And so what I'm not sure about is if I want it to be this case where, it's sort of the case where, like, I can't really fold the brim on this, because then it ends up hiding some of, like, ends up hiding at least a little bit, some of, like, that's not bad though. Some of the cool features. Well, this is pretty cool. So, it's not, like, there is a limit to how far you can fold, because, like, at the end of the day, like, there's definitely some intarsia here. There's definitely some long floats where I had to have the blue yarn get carried across a pretty large section of the orange and pink. But, like, this is a really cool hat. It makes my little angry Aries heart happy. So, not too shabby. Like, does this probably mean that I could have knit it on yet an even smaller needle size to get the result that I wanted? It may be the case where that is the right choice. It may be the case where what I really needed to do was to knit this on a 2.5. So we will figure that out. Or what it be? And I definitely have plenty of yarn left over as well. So, would it be, we still, like, there still is most of both skeins here. I didn't even use as much yarn as my first attempt at knitting the hat, though the bottom part does end up using more yarn. And so I think the yarn that I have remaining on this, aside from a little bit here, is actually all sort of the darker, more saturated ones. So I think this one is like Berry Trifle. I don't remember what the colorway name on this one is. Oh wait, nope. I thought I saw the label, but I lied. So what would it be? So I was able to finally knit the hat, which is good. So this was the only thing that I finished on my trip, but whatever. It was good. This whole series of hats is based on The Last Airbender. This is like a Nickelodeon sponsored anime style series. And Azula is one of the firebenders. So should be good. And so there's, I don't know if I'm, or it'd be, it does actually have, there's like two series, and so the hats from the collection are from both series. I haven't watched the other one, so it should be the case where, I don't know, should be good. Should be pretty good overall. So let's see. I'm trying to think if there is anything else that I would like to share here. So it is the case where I'm gonna have to take a break and give a Bambino some love. It is his first birthday today, so that's very exciting. So would it be some things are gonna have to happen before then. I'm not 100% sure how they're all gonna get done, but whatever, such is life. So he has woken up from his nap. It took much long. I started the episode and then my computer totally froze and then I had to restart things, and so it was a whole bit. So I will get into works in progress after a while. Alright, so should be good. Take care. Thank you. Alright. So, the next thing that I want to talk about is works in progress. So I did not end up taking the Scheherazade with me on the trip, because I still haven't figured out what I'm going to do about that yet. But it is the case where, so I had this going before I left, or it barely started before I left. Now this one is done, and then this is the other thing that ended up getting a lot of love. So this is a simple skip sock, but instead of skipping every other row, I am doing the skip stitch every third row, which is a little bit funny now that I'm in the government section. But seems to be working out fairly well. So I have a 2 3/4 inch gusset on this. I'm still on gusset decreases, but it's not too many more rounds before that's done. I think where would it be? It's only a couple more to go at this point. Would it be? And then you can see, let's just bring it in close. So you can, the texture is fairly subtle. It's probably a little bit easier to see very close. There we go. So it does add like a slightly different texture to the sock. It is making the knitting of it maybe a little bit more interesting. But yeah, so this one hasn't been too crazy in the grand scheme of things, so I'm just knitting my normal sock. I had to pull down the heel by numbers little PDFs so that I could turn the heel. So I think, I'm trying to think. I was definitely like writing somewhere when I ended up pulling that information, so that wasn't too crazy. I don't know if I'm going to regret this or not, but I'm actually knitting this on size 0 needles because the yarn is probably thicker than normal for my hand spun. So this is Into the World in, I believe, Tinkerbell's Unmentionables, and I did this as a fractal cable yarn, and because it is 4 plies, it is thicker than normal for my sock yarns. So this is yet another one of the legs of my experiment of what makes the best sock yarn. So I think so far it is the case where what has been holding up the best is actually my opposing ply yarn. So should be fine. But we shall see how the cable yarn turns out. So this will probably end up being my primary project for a while, just because, they're just, it's been a little bit hectic and crazy. So I started, I think I ended, I'm trying to think about when I had actually started this. Whatever, not too important. I don't know if I had started it before Thanksgiving or Christmas, but should be fine. So not too crazy. I'm glad that I'm not doing the skip every other row, because it would end up because even knitting on the zeros is pretty dense gauge for this yarn. So, but it looks like have plenty of stretch and elasticity in this. It's not my best cable ever. There are definitely some spots where it's like, but I think I'm now settled into a spot where it seems to be quite a bit nicer, so shouldn't be too crazy. And then since this is Into the World, it definitely has a much more complicated color repeat going on, so that's pretty cool. And the skip pattern is by Adrian Fu, so should be good. And what it'll be, I think after I get to gusset, it'll end up going pretty quick. And then I can start the next one. I'm actually pulling from the outside of the ball, so not too crazy there. Should have plenty of yarn, and they're very dense socks. So typically, I've actually been knitting the hand spun slacks on double zeros, and then actually doing 72 stitches. So we'll see how this works out. This is probably closer to the sport end in terms of like reps per inch. I did not start anything with these yarns, so that remains mysterious. But it does seem like one of them is very tangled up in the stitch markers I'm keeping in the back, so we'll have to sort through that. So I think I was talking about this last episode, which is that I had pulled out my Camilla Fiber Company, what is it? So this is an organic linen and wool blend, so it's 30% linen and then 70% wool. Which way am I going here? So, what would it be? And I decided to cast on a pretty hefty swatch. And the reason for that is, would it be? So it'd be the case where I wanted to evaluate if I was liking how everything was turning out on this and needed to do anything different, or if everything was going fine. And so it was the case where it was like looking at the recommended gauge for the pattern, and then deciding to like drop down a needle size. But I think the other thing going on here as well is that the original of the sweater, so this is, would it be the sweater that I'm planning on knitting, is called Poet, and it is a Sari Norland pattern. And I had, it was the case where I had a chance to try one on at SSK, but it is the case where the yarn that I ended up selecting for it may end up being at least somewhat different from the original. So it'd be the case where it was knit the The one I tried on was knit in Biche Bouche. The pattern was originally written for Tuku wool, and both of those are woolen spun fingerings. So this this yarn that I ended up selecting definitely has the right look to it. But the difference here is that this is a worsted spun yarn. So that meant that we have like really huge yardage per skein. And that's probably due to two reasons. Like, one of them is just like how it's spun. I think the other one is that because it does have a pretty high linen content, the linen helps make sure that it isn't too dense, actually. So there's that. It's fine. But it's definitely a very different yarn. It's much more smooth than what the pattern called for. So it was the case where I was knitting along on the stockinette gauge. I stopped to check out what my gauge was running without washing the swatch. And so it is the case where I am on target for a gauge without washing. But then it was sort of the case where I'd be like, this is so, like, this stockinette fabric is a little bit airy. Do I really want it to be that way? Because of the type of yarn it isn't going to bloom as much, I don't think. It may not bloom at all, to be quite frank. And so then it'd be like, am I okay with the way this is right now, or does it need to be different? Also, it is the case where, would it be like a little, I hadn't realized that it was actually raglan shaping, so so there's that. Be like, so what I wanted to do before I ended up getting too much further on this was puzzling over, did anything need to be different? And then it is the case where what I wanted to do was to start knitting the pattern, because most of the sweater is actually in the pattern, and decide how I felt about it then. And so I have like 3 and some repeats here, which you can see. And I still haven't completed like a full chart yet. But it is the case where I think I am happy with the fabric in the lace more so than the stockinette. But like, yeah. So I think that I am getting the desired effect here. And then I don't know whether or not the camera is actually really properly capturing that the yarn itself has a pretty cool depth to it because of the linen content. So there's definitely, the linen adds like a texture to it, which I think is very cool and lovely. So I can definitely see a scenario where I can see a scenario where I can drop down one more needle size and see if I like how the stockinette fabric integrates a little bit better. But because I selected a yarn with a pretty high linen content, maybe like it may just not end up looking a lot like the original ones. So, but I'm definitely liking my gauge better in the pattern than I am just in in the plain stockinette. Like, it probably still has the same integration things where basically what it is that the stitch is tighter, and then you can actually see the leg of the pearl behind it. I don't know whether or not that was clear when I was holding it up or not, but that's sort of what's happening here. And so, like, I don't know whether or not I'm like on the halfway point of the chart or not. Take a quick look. So we have like one repeat, and yeah, so, and then it's actually sort of like alternating between sides. So at some point soon I need to like bring in the next texture, and maybe that is the row that I'm on at the moment. I don't know. I'll have to count holes briefly. Yeah, no, I might have just knit the wrong row on this. Yep, no, I was supposed to do something different on this row. I'll have to undo everything that I did right now. So yeah, so it is the case where, whatever, the pattern has changed slightly, and I did not change with it. But it is like a fairly enjoyable pattern overall. It's definitely a long chart, but it's intuitive at least. I may need to decide to switch the decrease that I'm working, or to be, I opted to do the single slip version of slip knit, and I may need to do the doubled version of that in order to get a slightly better look, but I'll test it out sort of in this next half of the swatch at least. So not too crazy there, and then it's the case where we have a little bit of texture with the C-stitch, and then the lace. So overall, not too crazy. So it may be the case where I finish knitting the chart, and then within the same swatch, I will probably drop a needle size and check and see how it is I feel like with the next needle size down, which I believe would end up being the 2.5mm, which is my favorite anyways. But should be good. I don't know, can you guys? Yeah, and there definitely is stockinette in the sweater, so if I'm not happy with the stockinette, it would probably make sense to switch it out. But it is a pretty big swatch. So I think that it will be a nice wearing yarn overall. It isn't painful to knit with, which is probably good. I selected this yarn because it did look a bit more rustic, but it shouldn't be too crazy in the grand scheme of things, so it should be fine. And then the other thing that I'm going to have to do is decide if I'm going to change the shape. So the pattern is written, or it's actually like sort of like plotted out for the raglan edges, so the pattern smoothly flows into it, but I'll have to decide if I'm gonna switch it to be a drop shoulder or not. So that is what I need to figure out. It definitely already has the details built in for having would it be basically you start one of the charts a little bit earlier, and that's what's creating the difference between the back and the front. So that's already thought out already, but yeah, I have to decide that. So not too crazy. So there's still some choices to be made. I'm not really calling it officially cast on at this point, but it should be good. I'm a little bit blown out here. So 70% organic wool, 30% linen, 437 yards per 100 grams. So not a superwash, but definitely a worsted spun, not superwash. So we'll see. I'll also wash it before I decide which way I'm going to break on it, but we'll go from there. Or there's still a lot of deciding and figuring to be done, so hopefully it doesn't stop me from doing it. So that is everything that's going on right now. Shouldn't be too crazy. Would it be the spinning wheel has been resting for a little bit. We'll see if we can slot that in as I recover from jet lag and all of that fun stuff. It doesn't feel too bad now, so I might already be back. We'll see how I feel if I end up going to bed super early tomorrow night too. And then, yeah, shouldn't be too crazy. So probably won't record next weekend, but we'll pick up again in 2 weeks. Hopefully things are pretty chill for a while. Should be good. So with that, I hope you guys have a lovely week, and I look forward to talking to you guys soon. So take care, guys. Bye-bye.